around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, the hardest part of the ring. Back at you with another apron bump, and man, oh man, we got an anniversary for you. Nay, a Slammiversary. You know, I feel like we as wrestling fans don't beat TNA enough about how dildo of a name this pay-per-view is, but whatever. We got Slammiversary 2005, and as of the date that this episode drops, we are a little over 3 weeks away from Slammiversary 2021. Man, how time flies. The 19th anniversary of TNA, Impact, NWA, TNA, whatever you want to call it. The 19th anniversary is coming up here in a few weeks, but we are here to review the 3rd anniversary. It is crazy that this company just won't fucking die. Like, man, through the ups and the downs, we got to commend this company for sticking around this long. It is incredible. But, you know, as things change and evolve, some things just stay the same, because to kind of keep it with the theme of what's happening in current day, Samoa Joe still making waves. We just saw him, again, as of this recording, we just saw him last week return to the WWE as, I guess, the the sheriff of NXT. Is that what he's doing? If anybody remembers Stone Cold in 2003 riding his ATV and only giving stunners to people when provoked. So now we got Samoa Joe doing the same thing in NXT, which, you know what? Anything to have Samoa Joe on my screen is A-okay with the T-H-P-O-T-R. You know what I'm saying? That's a mouthful. I'm never gonna call myself that again. Don't worry, everybody. But yeah, I'm not lying when I say I love having Samoa Joe on my screen, and it's a good thing because we got him in current NXT. We just covered his debut in Ring of Honor at Glory by Honor 2002. Go check that out, because he had a stupid, insane match with Low Key on that show that we talked about. But now we got him in TNA. Finally, Slammiversary 2005 is the debut of Samoa Joe in tits and ass. And boy howdy, poor Sanjay Dutt just gets a beatdown. Man, but it was a very entertaining match, and we talk about it in great detail in the episode today. But yeah, between TNA Joe, Ring of Honor Joe, I think he even pops up in Progress at some point, if I'm not mistaken. But man, the apron bump is gonna be chock full of Joey Samoa from pretty much here on out. So buckle in, kids. But what else happens on this show? Well, not a whole lot. I'm kidding to an extent, because we have the King of the Mountain match main eventing this show, which, look, if you've been following my TNA reviews up to this point, you're very well aware that this era of TNA, their main events are usually pretty stupid. Like, even if they're just normal one-on-one matches, there's a lot of tomfoolery that gets involved because it's TNA, you know? But I kind of walked into this main event thinking it was just going to be ridiculousness and stupidity, but it was actually a very entertaining match, and we'll tell you why in the podcast. But I was a big fan of the King of the Mountain. I hope it returns sometime. I dare say. I'll go out on a limb here and say I want the King of the Mountain match to return in modern day Impact. But yeah, this period in 2005, we're in the summer of '05. And it's just kind of a transition period for them because TNA, a few weeks before this show, their contract with Fox Sports Net just ended. So they are no longer at Fox Sports Net. And after Slammiversary, they will be airing their episodes on their website, which is a thing that happened apparently. But like I said, a transition period because as we all know, they eventually get picked up by Spike. And that's pretty much that's a huge catalyst for a lot of their success that they see in the later half of the 2000s. So big things coming for TNA here, both with Samoa Joe debuting and all that stuff with the X Division that he brings, the Spike deal. So we're revving up, folks. We're revving up. And on this show, you just don't see like a lot of the old legends that we've seen in the previous shows that I've covered. You know, it seems like they'll just kind of get any old relic and just kind of throw them in there for name value. And trust me, they're not above doing that at this point, but this show seemed like kind of a changing of the guard in a way. A lot more young talent utilized on this show than previous shows, which I enjoyed personally. But yeah, solid matches throughout this show. A lot of cameos and appearances from like Ring of Honor guys and former WWE guys that I didn't expect to see on this show. Just a lot of, it's TNA, man. It's 2005 TNA. There's going to be a lot of ridiculousness, which is why it's like one of my favorite companies to cover on this podcast. But to join me in all this ridiculousness, we got Steve from the Positively Pro Wrestling podcast. Find them on Twitter at PPW Podcast. Listen to them wherever you listen to podcasts. They really do. Him, Steve, and his co-host Eric, they do a really great podcast over there. They started off as kind of, you know, as the name suggests, kind of putting a positive spin on pro wrestling because we see a lot of negativity nowadays. So it's a breath of fresh air, but also they do a lot of nostalgia, old school reviews, kind of like I do. So if you like old hardest part of the ring, you'll love what Positively Pro Wrestling does. So go check them out, give them a subscribe ski. And yeah, let's hop right into it. TNA Slammiversary 2005 with myself and Steve from the Positively Pro Wrestling podcast. Yeah, once again, thank you for making the time to talk some TNA, everybody's favorite. So I'm curious actually. So were you ever a TNA watcher yourself?
Nope, never. Not at all.
Never.
No,
really.
I didn't watch. I watched like randomly, but you got to also, this was weird too because this is 2005. So I watched wrestling from when I was, you know, from like 1989 or whatever up until about like 2001. And then even in 2000, I kind of slowed down and then I stopped watching completely until about end of 2006, early 2007. So I wasn't watching this. Like I knew what was going on, but so I was watching this. I was kind of missing this completely, this era. And with TNA, I started noticing them more when they started bringing in like Hogan and Bischoff and all them. So I missed all this stuff. But now what's funny is like watching this show, you see a bunch of guys like, oh, I know him from something else. And then like X-Pac's randomly on there at the end, and Raven's randomly on here too. So it's and I kind of remember like shoot interviews with Billy Gunn and Road Dogg when they were both really high, and they were just like with TNA with the Voodoo Kin Mafia, and they're like burying how much they hate Triple H, which is hilarious now.
That sounds about right.
But yeah, so that's kind of my TNA thing. So I watched it like sparingly, but I wasn't a fan. I mostly didn't like the announcers, like John West. Even on this show, like Don West and Tanay drove me nuts. we're not going to
Get the hell off my podcast.
We're not going to bury Don West today in light of the news that came out, but
right.
he's just every move's a scream.
Well, maybe TNA just has look. It's in the name. The action, it just doesn't stop.
That's true.
Totally.
That's true.
So
And
I mean, what's he gonna do? You know.
Was TNA always the announcer, or like how long was he there? Was he there the entire time, or did they replace him with somebody? I don't remember.
He was there for a long time. He was there. So it was TNA and Don West. I want to say till like 08, 09. And then it was TNA and Taz until I want to say like 2013, 2014. So he was there. Mike TNA was there for like the first 11 or 12 years. I think.
He was always the lead play-by-play guy.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know why I thought it was someone else. I don't know why.
You don't like Mike TNA?
No, I don't mind Mike TNA at all. I just think him and
Okay.
Don West together, they're both screaming over each other. I'm used to my Mike TNA as like a WCW telling me about Psychosis Mike TNA. That's what I'm used to.
Third Mike
Exactly,
TNA is what you're familiar. Yeah. I could see it being pretty jarring if that's what you're.
It's
if that's where you're used to.
I mean, but what's weird too is I've gone back and watched TNAs. I've actually like my local like secondhand shop. They randomly get like TNA DVDs for like $1 or $2. So I just grab them just to have something to watch in the background. I always laugh when I look back. It's like, oh, Kevin Nash he's still here, and he was always there for a paycheck and all that stuff too. But this show doesn't really have the old washed up wrestlers on the show for the most part. I mean, I guess maybe Raven, but he doesn't look like crap. Waltman's in really good shape. The worst looking shape guy in here is Road Dogg or BG James or whatever.
And even him, he's not. You know, he's
not bad
for what he's doing.
And I have notes on here about how Billy Gunn just never ages. And Conan's looking jacked here. So it was cool to watch because especially something I've never seen before at all. I did watch a little bit on YouTube, kind of the build to the show, so I was kind of familiar with what was going on and how they got to where they were. But it was cool to watch.
Well, yeah, it's actually interesting that you bring up the build-up. It's because so I always watch all the impacts leading up to the show, and on Impact Plus there weren't any episodes like in the 2 or 3 weeks before the show, and I was confused. I was like, is it like an app issue? Was there just like some scandalous shit that they don't want to put on their website? But apparently, they just lost their TV deal with Fox Sports.
Fox Sports, it was either Fox Sports Net or Fox. There wasn't one yet; it had to have been Net. Yeah, Fox Sports Net. Yeah.
Yes. And I guess they're kind of like in this purgatory period where, and they mentioned it at some point on the show that their episodes are going to air on Fridays on their website, which is, I don't know how long exactly that lasts, but I know they're upcoming their Spike deal by the end of the year, definitely for sure.
Yeah,
so
I didn't watch TNA. I didn't even know it existed when it was on Fox Sports 1. I only knew about it when it was on Spike.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way because I'm similar to you. I didn't watch any TNA till like 06 or so, and in my head they were just always on Spike. Yeah, like I know obviously they had like the weekly pay-per-views in the Asylum, but in my mind the Impact Zone didn't start till Spike. But it's not the case. They weren't. It was like a year.
I remember watching when I first like kind of tried to watch TNA, kind of being turned off by the Impact Zone, thinking like, oh, this looks kind of cheesy B-rate show. But now. After having stuff like AEW for the past year at Daly's Place, you kind of see where they ripped it off a little bit with the entrance tunnels. It looks totally fine. Like the production's fine. They've got lasers. The crowd's lit up well. It's good. It's not WWF at the time or WWE good, but it's good.
Right. Yeah, I enjoy it too, especially the tunnels, the on different sides. So you have the heels and faces not coming. That's always a thing that always kind of bothered me is that they come out in the same little area. It does become a bit of a problem because they do the pay-per-views in the same arena as they do the TV shows. And there's some exceptions later in the 2000s when they do kind of bigger arenas, but ultimately that's kind of where it's like every show has the same energy, which sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's like, okay, I want it to feel
These
like
were all free, right? You just had to be in the park at Universal Studios, right?
Yeah. I think, and that's another thing too, is that where they were, it's like there's a lot of people that aren't wrestling fans, just want to see a show. They hear, oh, Jeff Hardy's here or whatever, and then they just dedicate a few hours to watching.
I was in Orlando in 2011. Yeah, it must have been 2011 or 12, and there's a big billboard like Hogan was in TNA at the time, and he's doing his the bow and arrow pose flex. And it said, line up here for Impact tapings. And I looked, and there was a big line, and it looked like wrestling fans. So maybe like the locals in the area knew, okay, we're going to get to our seats. This is our thing, kind of taking over. It wasn't like the WCW Disney studios where there's people in Winnie the Pooh t-shirts in the front row. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think over time it became more of like, okay, we're following this, especially when they're on Spike and it's more accessible to people and people know what they're watching and the storylines and all that. But yeah, you brought it up earlier. I think we should, not to start off on a sad note, but yeah, Don West, I think it was within the last week, that got diagnosed with brain lymphoma, I believe it was, which is a serious bummer, man, because you didn't like Don West on commentary, but man, his energy was on a whole other level than like anybody I've ever seen in comment or heard in commentary.
I did like the Don West Deals commercials. Those are always fun. And
he's built to be an infomercial
at Starcast,
guy, I think.
The last Starcast in Chicago a couple of years ago, he was there at one of the gimmick tables, and must have been the last day of it, and we were in line to meet someone else, and he was at the gimmick table just like shouting Don West Deals, and it was kind of funny. He was doing his thing literally to get rid of the junk he didn't want to carry with him for back home. Right. So it was cool. He was the real deal, and he was shaking everyone's hand.
Hey,
he wasn't charging for pictures or autographs. I'm sure he could have charged like $5 or $10, but just everyone was cool. He was a good guy. So fingers crossed he can fight through this at least best he can.
Yeah, for sure. Much love to that. And it's not funny, but literally the last TNA show I did was the one right after Chris Candido died. This was like, God damn it, can I do one TNA show without some somber shit to lead it off? But
so where were you? Did you watch TNA?
And I think
don't know if we answered that. Were you a fan? Were you watching week to week? Okay.
I've been in and out. So like I said, I kind of just stumbled upon it like in 06, 07, and I watched it pretty consistently, kind of around the time. It was like when Hogan and Bischoff came in. It was somewhere around that time where I kind of tuned out. And then I came back when like MVP was there because they were doing some good stuff there with like, it was like Lashley was there too. And but then I tuned out again, and then it's kind of, I haven't really been consistently watching. It's probably been like a decade since I've consistently
TNA also
watched.
was a little bit ahead of its time watching the show with some of these moves the guys are doing, and the big spot fest, particularly in the X Division match, and I think in like a couple other matches. A lot of these things are happening now on indie shows or in PWG or Game Changer Wrestling or even in AEW a little bit. And that was one thing I noticed where people were going nuts in the crowd, but it's kind of commonplace now with Canadian Destroyers and Tope Suicidas and all this stuff. So they might have been a little bit ahead of their time. And also, it seemed like my issue always with TNA was they didn't know who they wanted to be. Like, are we the place where all the old guys come for nostalgia, or are we the place for nonstop action, like they say? And they never really could find it, it seemed like, and that kind of was their downfall.
Yeah, because there were a lot of elements to it that felt like very later years WCW, because like you said, all the old timers, and you're right, there weren't that many on the show, but in the events I've covered just in the past few months, we've seen like, Kevin Nash in the main event fighting for the world title, DDP, Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka, anybody that they can get there in Orlando just for name value, which I in some sense I get. You want to have those big names to kind of draw people in, and I guess because they were starting to get a little bit of a buzz at this point, but I think they would learn in time that what got them the buzz and maintained their viewership was the stuff that they were doing that WWE was not doing at this time, like tag team wrestling or the X Division, stuff like that.
Yeah, look at I was thinking when I was watching the show, 2005 WWE, which is the only really mainstream game in town, is nothing like this show. They're the complete opposite. 2005, you've got the rise of Cena and Batista, and Triple H is still in the main event. So those aren't exactly huge, high-flying guys, but it's crazy looking at the differences between these two companies at the time. And I could see now in retrospect, I don't have any nostalgia for it or anything, but I can see in retrospect how people liked it and what they thought of it.
Yeah, good or bad, it was definitely different than what WWE was putting out, and that's kind of what their downfall was, in my opinion. Is that eventually they kind of just became WWE light. So it was like, why am I going to watch this when I could just watch the bigger, more spectacular version over here? Yeah,
and I don't know. What's weird too is we talked about the Impact Zone a little bit and how it made every show feel the same. And I get they wanted to make money with like a TV deal, but I think if the internet was around, but it wasn't as social media wasn't as massive as it is now, with being able to share things with YouTube and Twitter and all that. But I feel like they could have made a really big name for themselves just being kind of an independent promotion. I know Jarrett was always trying to get the TV deal and always trying to make it the big company, but just watching this, it just really seems it's got a lot of independent wrestling 21st century vibes we have right now.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. That's kind of what ROH was at this time too, because there's also kind of when I started to watch Ring of Honor too, and you see there's a lot of crossover, like Amazing Red that we see on this show, Delirious, people like that. So there's a lot of crossover. Even Samoa Joe, he's still with Ring of Honor at this point.
My notes is Baby Joe. He looks so young.
Oh man, I can't wait to get to that. So we need to get right into it.
Go ahead and you drive. It's your show.
But man, this intro package, first of all, I gotta say, I say it for every TNA show I do. If there's one thing that Impact did well, it was their intro packages. Man, they got you. I don't even know what the dude was saying, but it sounded epic and it made me ready for some wrestling.
He does have big movie guy voice, like the guy does. It's classic. I did appreciate, since I guess Slammiversary. Is this Slammiversary the biggest show of the year, or is Bound for Glory like their biggest show of the year?
So this is like a SummerSlam.
Okay.
That's kind of what I've gathered over the, and we should note this is the first ever Slammiversary. Very timely, because I believe it's in a few weeks that we get their 17th something.
Yeah, and I think they're planning on having fans back there, which should be kind of cool.
Yeah, I might even look at some highlights.
Yeah. Hey, maybe if it's like $20 or something on Twitch or whatever they're streaming it on. But the other thing that was cool was the flashback to moments in history the theme throughout the show has. I thought that was really cool, especially for a novice fan like me. It's like, they show the one spot over and over again of, I don't even know who it is. You could probably tell me. The guy,
Felix Skipper.
Yeah, on the cage. He does the tightrope into the Hurricane Rana, which is still amazing. I think if someone did that now, it'd be like people would be losing their mind. It's still awesome to see now, and I can't believe he nailed it, because that's a one-take shot. He just nails it. That's
literally what he became known for after. And if you go onto Impact's YouTube page right now, all their videos, it has like some quick little clips of like stuff that's happened in the history of TNA, and that's always going to be on it. Like it's still to this day one of the biggest moments that happened for them. But yeah, it was because the intro package was great, but it was such like a juxtaposition to the match preview video packages, because those were, I don't know if you got this, but the match video packages before each match were terrible.
Yeah, that's what's weird, because I think that's what WWE and F has always done so well, is those pre-match hype videos. It's helpful now on the network, or even on Peacock, or if you pop in an old DVD. You're like, I don't remember this. And like, they'll give you 3 minutes to remind you why this match is happening. And I don't know why Impact couldn't do that if they had the kick-ass intro of the show.
Dude, whether it is like the Windows Media Player, like word art.
Oh, God.
Or there was like, they would have like 3 different sounds going on at the same time, and they'd all be different levels, but you couldn't like hear any, like, it was just.
They're out of money. X-Pac needed a dressing room. So they're out of money.
You're joking, but that's probably not the furthest thing from the truth. And the pre-show, got to bring this up because so I guess Raven and Jeff Jarrett are in the ring. They're bickering. They're not happy with each other. So they end up brawling. And at some point, Jeff gets knocked to the outside. And there's this fan yelling in his face who, for some reason, is dressed like Jeff Hardy.
I thought it was.
I did too. I was like, what? So Jeff Hardy's going to enter the match? And no, it was just a guy that looked like Jeff Hardy. No one ever brought any attention to it. It was just there. But this fan is yelling in Jeff Jarrett's face, so Jeff gets all peeved off, grabs the fan, pulls him over the barricade, beats the shit out of him, and gets arrested. As he should, I guess,
It's a weird thing to start a pay-per-view off with. Was Jarrett advertised to be on the show, or was he just there as what was he supposed to be in?
He was going to be in the main event.
That's what I thought, but I'm like, that can't be right. They wouldn't have just taken him off the show in the pre-show, but they did apparently.
Yeah, I meant to research. I don't know if maybe he was like injured or something, or if there's some reason he couldn't compete. But because he was he was the biggest name, like I guess homegrown, quote unquote, that they had, because he was world champion for like a year, and he just recently lost it in the last pay-per-view. So he was a big time deal in TNA at this point. So there must have been some reason for him to get taken out.
Raven wanted to go over, and they let him. That's how they let it happen.
And that's what happened. So Jeff Jarrett is out of the main event, the King of the Mountain match, and Raven takes his spot. So more to follow on that. But to open the show, we have a 6-pack challenge match. It's a X Division match. So we got Elix Skipper, who we brought up earlier, versus Delirious from Ring of Honor versus Shark Boy versus Jarrell Clark versus Zach Gowen versus Amazing Red. What a cast of characters in this match, man.
This is just wrestlers. We got a guy with one leg, got a guy with a shark mask, and
another guy with a mask that's crazy and has tassels, and then
this was just a crazy spot fest. But I thought it was fun. I liked it. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, it felt short to me. Like it was, especially with 6 guys. It felt like everybody was just kind of jamming all their shit in. Everybody's getting their finishers. But I do want to note, and they made reference to this, which I was surprised that they did. Apparently, Shark Boy sued Miramax, which I guess is like a production company of some sort, for the movie Shark Boy versus Lava Girl. Are you familiar with this film?
I've heard of it. I don't think my kids have watched it yet, but I've heard of it. Is this a real story? He really sued them?
Yes.
Did he win?
So it got settled out of court. Who knows? But it was basically a copyright infringement, obviously, for his name, which is fun. I never made that connection in my life. I guess that movie isn't really a big part of my life, so maybe that's why. But yeah. So, and I Wikipedia'd this because I was interested, and this little excerpt made me laugh. So it says, Miramax had attempted to have the case dismissed, in addition to requesting that the court nullify Rolls, which is Shark Boy's real name, trademark on the basis that the plaintiff is a male whose services are rendered only when he's wearing the costume depicting shark-like attributes.
Well,
which is just like a funny, like...
Could you imagine the judge getting this case being like, what? Come on. Like, really? We got to do this?
This asshole wrestler in Disney World that has a fin on his head. Who cares? We have murders.
The judge gets the what is this? That Hulkamania bullshit? The WrestleMania? This is still going on? Shark Boy. Miramax
TNA
was Harvey Weinstein. Miramax is Harvey Weinstein's old company too. So he was the head of Miramax. So there's another little tidbit to throw into this lawsuit.
But that doesn't stop him from winning this match.
Yeah,
he
go for him.
Wins with the Dead Sea Drop. But other than that, like you said, a fun match, pretty short.
The kids love Shark Boy. The kids all did the fin thing with their head on their hand. They did it.
Everyone was doing it.
Good for a guy who said, you know what, I'm going to make this stupid thing work. And he's had a long career.
Are you familiar with his Stone Cold gimmick?
Yes, I am. I've seen it before on YouTube.
Shale, yeah.
Yes, I'm a big fan of the parody that TNA has done with him and Jay Lethal, both doing parody guys. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
When it's done well like that is, I'm a fan.
Right. It's a good little match there. But then after that, we got some more X Division action. Alex Shelley versus Shocker. You familiar with Shocker at all?
Nope, not at all. This is one of the guys I'm like, who is this guy? So educate me.
You've never seen the McDonald's commercial?
No. Now I'm going to have to YouTube this. What are you talking about?
So he debuts a few months before this in a very dramatic way. Like, he's in the middle of the ring. He has this black outfit and a black mask, and he takes it off, and he reveals his face, and then there's this... Nobody knows who this guy is. And he's a wrestler. He wrestled in CMLL and lots of places in Mexico. He's a big star there. But nobody in Orlando, Florida knows who Shocker is. Nobody in America knows who Shocker is.
Nobody here in Chicago knows who he is.
Nope. And I don't think he sticks around for very long. I'm honestly surprised he's lasted this long, which has been like 3 pay-per-views worth.
Was this kind of like when WWF hired... it was Mystico, they turned into Sin Cara, and he was gonna be this giant thing, and everyone's like, yeah, we're good. We don't care. We're good.
No. Yeah. That's actually a very good comparison. That'd be like if, that'd be exactly the same thing. But he's debuting this new look, right? So are you familiar with Rey Mysterio from WCW without his mask?
Yeah.
I think, what was the group called?
The Filthy somethings? I don't remember.
Yes, the Filthy Animals or something?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sounds about right.
When Shocker here is basically cosplaying Rey Mysterio from 2000 here. He has the denim overalls, the glasses, the beanie. Is like, dude, this isn't going to make people care about you. Like,
hey.
We like Rey Mysterio. We don't like you. So there's a little, they have a little interaction there backstage. Shane Douglas is interviewing them. Basically, Alex Shelley pops up, which this is his return. I don't think it's his debut, but he had been gone from TNA for a while. But Alex Shelley's basically like, oh, you only do lucha libre. I'm more well-rounded, and it's very aggressive and whatever. It's very like yelling at each other. Like, I could do wrestling moves better. Than, like, who cares?
Yeah.
But like I said, there wasn't a lot of build to this show. There's like 2 weeks of build because of the whole TV thing. So there wasn't a lot of like build to any of these matches other than the main event, really. But
it still was fine. It was entertaining enough. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good as the first match, but it was fine. You had 2 like high-flying fast matches to start.
Yeah, and I liked it. It had more of like a technical kind of aspect to it than the first one. The first one is more like high-flying planchas and stuff like that.
Yeah. Whereas
This was more technical, which I like the change of pace there. And I've always been a big Alex Shelley guy, so it was good to see him. But I should mention that Mike Tenay did a good job in this match and throughout the show at like explaining the accolades and who these people were, because it's almost like he was working the show like people were tuning in for the first time, which is like, thank God I know what this guy has done now other than the McDonald's commercial, because every time Shocker's on TV, they bring up this goddamn McDonald's commercial. Nobody's seen this McDonald's commercial from Mike Tenay. I don't care.
Poor Mike. He's trying.
Fuck Mike Tenay. You know what? You're right. Fuck Mike Tenay.
Got you to turn within 15 minutes.
But then, so like midway through the match, Alex Shelley gets on his knees and kisses Shocker's feet, which is a weird way to distract your opponent, but it worked. So it allowed him to take advantage. They trade all different kinds of roll-ups and stuff, but Shocker eventually is able to capitalize and get, so I don't know how to describe this roll-up. It was some weird small package, sideways bullshit, but Shocker gets the win out of nowhere.
Yeah, he like countered out of like a Cobra clutch or something into a pin. It was weird.
Yeah, it's like when you go for a like a cross arm breaker from a standing position, but he like wrapped his legs around him and hooked his legs, but it's like a whole thing.
Never mind. The Cobra clutch was the next match. I had the wrong notes on this. This one ended with like a head scissors small package. The Cobra clutch pin is next. It's coming up.
Head scissors small package. That sounds right. That sounds right. But yeah, good little match there. Anything else on it?
No. When I started the show, I mean, we were DMing earlier, and I was like, this show wasn't great. And the first 2 matches are pretty good. They're entertaining. But now we get to this like weird part of the show. At least I think so. Yeah. When Shane Douglas shows up to interview people, I'm like, what's going on here?
Can we talk about Shane Douglas for a second?
What are your thoughts on him as a backstage guy?
I'm so fucking annoyed with Shane Douglas.
He's just doing the Shane Douglas thing as in a polo that he's got at when you work at like Ace Hardware. So he's just doing his thing. He's doing the Shane Douglas thing.
Every time, so they'll cut to him, right? And he always starts off with some weird noise. So it'll be like a match happening, and it'll cut to him. And they'll be like, oh, so we got like he always does some weird thing like that, and his mannerisms are so exaggerated, and he's like almost trying to get himself over. It seems like.
Well, maybe eventually you're always looking for a payday when you're a wrestler. You're always working. Just remember that. They're all carnies.
Can't fault him for that.
We all love wrestling, but they're all just carnies at the end of the day.
That's a fact.
Go to a WrestleCon and they'll hustle you all.
He manages some team. I want to say it might be the Naturals, which we see later. I think he eventually manages them. But whatever the case may be. So wait, you're telling me you didn't like the Outlaw versus Ron Killings?
The only thing I liked about this was both guys look exactly the same now as they did in 2005.
Yeah. No shit, dude.
I prefer my Ron the Truth Killings to be more funny. I don't need a serious thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. They did the hype video, and I still don't understand why they were having a match. I still don't get it. I don't know what they're fighting over.
So you're saying their packages didn't articulate the issues at hand? Was it too muddled by the 5 different sounds going on at the same time and the Arial black fonts popping up at you?
Yeah, I was confused, very confused. And everyone's got initials on their jacket. I'm like, what does that mean? And all that. But it's just like a TV match. It seemed like a match that would be on TV. It wasn't a pay-per-view match.
I'll try to lay it out kind of succinctly here. So Ron Killings is in a 3-man faction called the 3 Live Crew. So it's him, Conan, and BG James. So over the past like month or 2, they've had tension because the Outlaw, aka Billy Gunn, he debuted, and this kind of caused Conan and Ron Killings to kind of question where BG James, aka Road Dogg, they questioned where his alliances were, because we obviously have the New Age Outlaw kind of history between those two. So they're like, are you with us or are you with him?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been kind of occurrences where they're tagging and one guy accidentally hits another, and then you know how the whole thing goes. So there's been tension brewing between that faction, and Outlaw is kind of the catalyst for that.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's Braun facing Outlaw, because it seems like Conan's had been more hostile.
Conan's got other stuff to deal with later tonight. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I guess. And and just back to the pre-match interview. Okay, so this made me laugh because, this is when Shane Douglas is interviewing one of them, but then eventually it's all the 3 Live Crew guys talking to each other, and BG is like I'm with you guys. You know, you're where my home is. Don't worry about that guy. He's saying all this stuff, and I'm like, man, this is a pretty good promo. But then they cut right to the pre-recorded video package for the match, and it automatically shows him cutting the exact same promo from Impact.
Yeah, that's not
like almost word for
and again,
word.
this was a thing because I'm watching the show, and most of the time I'm watching shows like our show. It's a lot of nostalgic retro wrestling stuff, and I've seen the shows 100 times. This I've never seen before, so I always have to double check. I'm like, did that just happen? Like, am I missing something here? But this just seems, I guess, from what you're telling me, kind of par for the course for the weirdness that is TNA. From stuff like this to the one-legged man to, I cannot wait to talk about the main event and how weird those rules of that match are. We'll talk. I don't want to get ahead of myself yet, but
I feel like we kind of glazed over the one-legged man wrestling.
But he was, he's also, this is post him being destroyed by Brock Lesnar in WWE. So we know him. He's not just like I know him. So I would have been weirded out if he was just a different one-legged wrestler I never heard of before.
He actually had 2 legs. It was all at work.
Yeah, it was at work, yeah. Or like in Forrest Gump, it was all blue screen with Lieutenant Dan's legs.
Exactly.
I mean, you could lead the way on this Ron Killings versus the one Billy Gunn match or whatever their names are in TNA.
The Outlaw. He's I don't know who this Billy Gunn character you're talking about is. This
is
the
this
Outlaw.
Before or after the Voodoo Kid Mafia?
This is before.
So then he turns to Monty Sopp or whatever his name is. So Kip James or whatever.
He has a lot. So I think he's Kip James, and then he's Kip Sopp, and then he's he's the hairdresser for the beautiful people or some weird stuff.
Isn't his real name Monty Sopp?
It's definitely Sopp. I think it might. It's either Kip or Monty.
What an asshole. Monty Sopp.
What an asshole. You don't think Monty Sopp would have gotten over in the
Wikipedia him right now to figure out what his real name is.
You show respect to the smoking gun, okay?
Monty Sopp. That's his real name. Monty Kip Sopp. 57 though, still looks good, so he'll kick my ass. Anyway, go back
he's gonna hear this. He's gonna find you.
He's gonna Google me.
Your punches are gonna slip off his baby oil.
Probably.
So
this choker necklace will get caught around my thigh. All right, go ahead. Sorry, we're too much Monty Sopp talk.
I'm trying to get into this barn burner of a match here. It's there's really not much to it. A lot of this match is the Outlaw. I'm gonna call him Monty Sopp from here on out. So Monty Sopp is dominating R-Truth for the most part in this match. At one point, he just hits a low blow right in front of the ref, and the ref's like, oh. But then Truth makes a comeback towards the end, but then just gets hit with the Famouser virtually out of nowhere. And I think that's, oh, no. So Monty Sopp hits the Famouser, but he's like, no, I have another finisher. So he goes for the one and only, which I believe is what you were referencing earlier. It's like a Cobra Clutch slam, basically. It's like Jinder Mahal's finisher, but good. So,
but good.
And then, so he goes for the one and only, but R-Truth reverses into a roll-up for the win. So he gets a quick win out of nowhere. But Monty Sopp attacks R-Truth after. And then he hits the one and only after the bells rang and all that. He grabs a chair, brings it into the ring. But BG James, Road Dogg comes out to make the save, takes the chair away from Billy. And Billy turns his back to Road Dogg, dares him to hit him. But Road Dogg can't do it. It's too much history. And then Conan comes out.
Was this the match the crowd was chanting New Age Outlaws? I think it was. Okay.
That was the moment, I believe, yes. Conan comes out, chases Billy away, and then him and Road Dogg bicker, and then just more tension between the 3 Live crew. I mean, I hate to see it. I don't know about you.
That's what all these initials meant. I was confused. Because Road Dogg has something on his back too, like DLK. I don't know, something on his back with something he's in for.
So I'm gonna tell you why these guys are cool.
Okay.
So they spell crew KREW.
Okay, I hear you. I mean, maybe they'll get sued with a C. Maybe someone has that copyright. Or CRU or something like that. Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
This is just a mess. The whole thing was just a mess.
We're just getting started, buddy.
Okay. All right, let's go. Keep going. I can't wait to keep talking.
Oh, man. So we're backstage with Scott D'Amore again. Thank God, because I missed him so much. Did I say Scott D'Amore? Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas is interviewing. Scott D'Amore is there, says he's Hitler. Yeah, the usual. So next match, Scott D'Amore, the leader of Team Canada, he says, I'm paraphrasing, but he's basically like, there was Mussolini, there was Stalin, there was Hitler, and now there's me. Great leaders. It's like,
Jesus. Aggressive.
A little heavy-handed there, Scotty. But that transitions us into the tag team title match. We have the champions, the Naturals, versus Team Canada. So we got Eric Young and Petey Williams representing the Canadians. So another underlying theme here. So Chris Candido, we mentioned earlier, just recently passed away, and he was the manager of the Naturals. So they've essentially just been alluding to the fact that they've found another manager. It's supposed to be this whole mystery thing, right? So the match gets underway. The match was fine. It didn't really grip me at any point. The Canadians are dominating a lot in the early parts of it. Chase Stevens, the guy on the Naturals, it seems like they were beating up that guy for like 10 minutes straight. Like, he got no offense. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this about the commentary. The commentary did not like Team Canada. Holy shit, they were livid at everything they were doing, which is like it sells at their heels.
The Team Canada thing has been done. It feels like it's been done like at least a dozen times across various promotions. Yep. And it never really works except for when the Hart Foundation did it in 96 or 97. But
yeah,
it just always seems to get people riled up. I mean, I live in America. I don't really hate Canadians. I don't care if they like crap on us. Like, some of your points are valid. I get it. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, Canadians' points. I hear you.
Healthcare is pretty nice up there, I'm sure.
Yeah, like, we have gun violence. That's fair, Canada. I get it. So I like hockey, but it just doesn't do it for me. But it works though, like with the live crowd. So I kind of get why they still do it across. You
didn't like the Un-Americans?
No.
Christian Test and
or remember when,
who was it? Lance Storm.
The dying days of WCW, they turned Hacksaw Jim Duggan heel and he joined like a Canada team too.
I hope that's
true.
It
is. It definitely is.
All might be into that's true.
It definitely is. That was it was before or after he was a janitor and he found the US title in the trash can. So
that's better than Sergeant Slaughter turning on America.
It is a little better, but keep going with this Team Canada weirdness.
They're being dastardly heels. These Canadians. You got Scott D'Amore involved, and A1. This is the big, stupid, muscled up jock that's a part of their faction as well. He's interfering. So Chase Stevens is getting beat up, and then Andy Douglas, the other Natural, makes the hot tag, and then it's pretty much just chaos at the end. At the end, Andy Douglas gets hit with a hockey stick wrapped in a Canadian flag, just to reinforce
Canada
that they're Canadian. Yes. So Andy Douglas gets hit, but then Jimmy Hart comes out and throws Chase Stevens a megaphone, and he hits one of the guys, and then the Naturals win.
He is the spiritual advisor, apparently, huh? Was this like there was no TV, so you didn't know. But how long was this being built for? Any idea?
This is the last pay-per-view was when they first alluded to it, and then there was like 2 or 3 weeks of TV where they kind of alluded to it. But so it was a very well-built thing, and it's Jimmy Hart. Oh, baby. Yeah, it was a good shit, right?
Jimmy Hart's a nice guy, by the way. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I have not met him, but I believe you.
he does his hair the same, and he looks the same. He's got the glasses, looks the same. He brings the megaphone with him wherever he goes, and good guy, that Jimmy Hart.
I just saw a documentary. I forget what documentary he was in recently. It was like Dark Side of the Ring or something, but he looks pretty much the same. Just maybe thinner hair, but other than that.
Yeah, he was on the A&E Hidden Treasures with Beefcake and Greg Valentine, too. He was talking about that.
Gotcha. So the Naturals win, and Jimmy Hart, I guess, is their manager. Which brings us to pretty much the reason I wanted to watch this show.
Okay.
The debut of Samoa Joe.
Which is very timely, of course, with him being back in WWE/NXT.
Look at us. We got Slammiversary coming up. We got Samoa Joe returning. Man, this better explode. Now, let me tell you.
Yeah, right. Hundreds of downloads. Thousands.
Thousands. And he's facing Sanjay Dutt, which I love Sanjay Dutt, but he's here to just get a beat down. But honestly, I expected it to be more of a squash than it ended up being, because the original player from the Himalaya, I mean, he got a lot of offense in this match. It was probably like a 70-30 more so than anything. But like you said, Samoa Joe here, Baby Joe.
I was surprised how much offense that Samoa Joe let him get in. Like Samoa Joe whooped his ass, and it was a squash, but it wasn't a complete, Goldberg Ryback-esque squash match.
Yes.
It was a wrestling match. I think maybe they wanted to show off he's an awesome wrestler, and even Don West points out a lot about he's big, but look how agile he is and all this stuff, and he is. And I didn't know Samoa Joe and ROH. ROH, like you said, I kind of started hearing rumblings about them because they would always do shows out here in the Chicago area at a little suburb called Chicago Ridge, at like a field house. So I'd always get flyers for their shows and everything like that. And eventually I would start going to them, but this was probably later on, 2008, 2009, when I started going to those. So I knew of ROH, but I did not know Samoa Joe. Did you know where he was yet? Did you know who Samoa Joe was?
So, I mean, at this time I didn't know who Samoa Joe was, but it's funny because I also do a timeline on Ring of Honor where I started from the beginning. And literally just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I covered his debut in Ring of Honor as well. And let me tell you, it was him versus Low Key. And I don't know if you've ever seen that match, but it's literally just two guys actually hitting each other very hard for a long time. And he was that's kind of almost what I was expecting with this match. But like you said, I was expecting more of like a Goldberg kind of squash.
Yeah, kind of like remember when Kevin Owens debuted in NXT, where he just beat the hell out of the guy. I forget who he wrestled, but it was
CJ Parker.
Yeah, it's like he's arrived here, and he even like cut his nose and all that. Like he made an impact, no pun intended. Where Samoa Joe did here as well. Big impact.
He sure did. Like you said, man, Joe was so quick back then, man. He was scary fast. He's still strong, obviously. Super stiff. Like in particular, that corner Uranagi that he does, which he did all the way up until he last wrestled. He dropped Sanjay Dutt right on his fucking head. It was like, man, this is what I didn't pay to see, But yeah, a lot of good off. He hits all of his signature moves, the sentons and all that. Ultimately hits the muscle buster, followed by the coquina clutch, rear naked choke. Sanjay Dutt taps immediately, and Samoa Joe is 1-0 in TNA.
And I started kind of going down the rabbit hole of Samoa Joe and Impact and TNA, and he basically didn't lose until Kurt Angle showed up. Right, that's what they built him as. I do remember the Angle Joe feud. That's kind of when I started watching Impact a little bit, because I started listening to a wrestling podcast back when there weren't that many of them out there, and they were kind of reviewing these shows, and they were talking about what was their big blow off. Where was it, the cage match, Lockdown, where it was like an MMA style fight? Was that kind of their blow off to the end of their feud?
I believe so. I think because they had a few matches when Kurt debuted. And I think they kind of like there was a period where they kind of didn't fight each other. And then Lockdown, I think, might have been like a year after that.
Yeah.
My timeline might be off, but that's what I remember.
But yeah, that's what I kind of remember. So in a way, this guy I never heard of, Samoa Joe, comes in, he's so good. And even me not being a huge wrestling fan at all at the time, I was in. I knew who Samoa Joe was. So awesome stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, he made an impact immediately, and then we're off to the races.
Would you say he made total non-stop impact? Or No.
No.
Oh, I left you
wouldn't say
hanging
that.
there.
That'd be a stupid thing to say. Oh man, I have this new media board now. I should have done the old fuck, I don't even know how to do it.
It's okay. At least the timing didn't go way
man.
past it. And
Oh man, I'll add it in post. Don't worry.
there you
There
go.
it is. Why is it so fucking delayed? I didn't. Hit
That's
anything.
even better. It's even better. Leave it in. Do not
Man,
change that.
Leave
it in.
I have an egg on my face now.
Leave it in. Anyway, Samoa Joe's a badass. We could agree.
Yada yada yada. Yeah. But then after that, cuts backstage to Raven. Seems like he's in the bowels of the arena somewhere. Says a lot here, but pretty much summarizes by saying that he's a human cancer and that he'll win tonight because no one else in the match is willing to make their wives widows or their parents childless.
I think this is a little too intense for 2005 wrestling.
Do you think?
This is like 97 promo is what this should
Yeah.
be. This is not 2005 promo.
That would have been more appropriate in his ECW run.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think.
Or even maybe in the flock in WCW. Maybe. But this is just intense. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot to face fucking AJ Styles
Scotty,
later.
old
like,
Scotty, Johnny Polo out there cutting promos.
Scotty Flamingo, you gotta love him. But then, boy howdy, this next match we have Bobby Roode of Team Canada versus Lance Hoyt.
Speaking of babies,
aka Lance Archer.
couple of
Man,
babies here, huh?
Couple of babies. Two guys still going today. Pretty much at the same kind of pace, if not better, I dare say.
Bobby Roode's
today.
kind of recognizable, like, oh, that's Bobby Roode, but Hoyt, it took me a second to like confirm, like, is that who I think it is? And it was.
You saw the tramp stamp and you're like, wait a minute.
I just see how big he is. I'm like, that's a massive
Yeah.
guy. I'm like, okay, I get it.
That's got to be a guy. But because he used to go by the name Dallas. So he gets in the ring and Mike Tenay calls him the big man from Big D.
Mm-hmm.
What you got on that one?
I got nothing. I got nothing on that one. This is just this whole show. The whole theme of the show is okay. There's cool stuff, and then just something weird happens out of nowhere, and I don't know who is Jeff Jarrett's the producer at this time, right? He's still kind of in charge. He's producing.
He's somewhere up there.
Yeah, he's got to be the main guy, and this may have been a little bit of let these guys do whatever they want, which is great, but have kind of a direction, which is again why I think Impact didn't catch on as much because they were just never picked a lane. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. And it was another thing too. This is pre Vince Russo.
Yeah.
So
Is Cornette here yet?
no, I don't
Okay.
believe so. I think Dusty Rhodes is still
Okay.
booking and all that stuff. But it's weird to get people shit on Russo, but once he got there is when storylines. I mean, they weren't all good, but like a lot of it was very good. You know, Kurt, and it also kind of plays into people debut, and you get like Christian in a few months gets in there, and then Kurt Angle and Sting, so that plays a lot into it too. But at this point, the storylines didn't make sense or give you any reason to care.
It was tough with no TV too. They're on hiatus right now. They're shooting free tapings in Orlando and about to go on their website for however long it was, however hiatus this was.
Yeah. But basically, there's not much of a story here, but Lance Hoyt is kind of like a cult favorite in the Impact Zone. Like people just cheer for him. I haven't really figured out why, but I don't know if it's because of irony, because he's I don't know what it is, but people love Hoyt in the Impact Zone, and you have Bobby Roode who's Canadian, so we hate him, right? So
We went over this. Yes, we don't like Canadians.
yes.
We went over this.
The match is what it is. Again, this one didn't really capture my attention that much. I do love, like, at the start of the match, Lance gives Bobby Roode some shoves, and Bobby Roode gets like shot out of a cannon. Like he goes all the way across the ring. But it doesn't last long because Roode kind of takes advantage, I guess because he's the heel, and that seems like the theme here. There was one part that made me laugh, though. So there was a part where Lance is giving him the 10 punches in the corner. Roode counters it with an atomic drop, or he tries to do an atomic drop. But Lance Hoyt, I guess he's like too tall for it to like affect him, so he missed. But Mike Tenay did not catch this. So he's like, Mike Tenay it doesn't click in his brain that, oh, he didn't hit him. He thought that it just didn't phase him, which is what he said on. So I think to this day, Mike Tenay just think Lance Archer doesn't have any balls. So,
well, they're looking at the monitors. It wasn't a clear shot, or maybe he was looking up from the monitor at the time. Maybe he missed it. We'll give Tenay
there's a lot going on.
Again, I'm back. I was anti-Tenay at the start of this, and I'm defending him now. You're the one giving him crap all over.
What a double turn.
It is here. Team Canada gets the win.
But yes. So Scott D'Amore, the manager, distracts Lance Hoyt. Bobby Roode hits the Northern Lariat for the win. They beat down Hoyt after for whatever reason. This leads to Scott D'Amore taking his shirt off for some reason.
Yeah.
I guess he was a big Hardy Boys fan. I guess that's the thing.
Yeah, this is again a weird thing that just gets the crowd heat and then happy again after he misses a moonsault.
Yeah, and I didn't expect a moonsault from him by any means, so that was impressive. But like you said, he misses Lance Hoyt and then gets choke slammed, and then Lance Hoyt hits a moonsault of his own. And boy, howdy, is commentary just beating up on Scott D'Amore for being fat, just for being fat and Canadian. And Don West isn't exactly a slender fellow himself, so it's like, what? Because they're like, they bring out a stretcher for Scott D'Amore, and they're like, can the stretcher even hold him up? I'm surprised the ring's still standing after like all that stuff. It's like, is this necessary?
I think they're just trying to fill time because they're seeing the same thing we're seeing. They're like, we got to put this over. Maybe that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, they got to give some energy somewhere. They even do the whole nah, that whole thing, but like they're doing it in the commentators, which is a weird kind of cringy thing. It was like just like cartoonish, all of this stuff. I appreciate the emotion, but it was a little too over the top for me, I think. But yeah, anything on Lance Archer and Robert Roode?
No, and even Roode was a guy when he came to NXT I was a big fan of. I knew who he was from Impact in his later days in TNA. And Archer, I didn't really get into, even in AEW now. Like, he's okay, but I don't know. He just doesn't do it for me. I'm not the biggest fan.
I liked his act in Japan because he felt more like a monster there, whereas in AEW, he just kind of feels like a cartoon character at some. It kind of feels like a more generic somehow in AEW. Not as bad as his ECW run. Do you remember Vance Archer
in WWE ECW or the original ECW?
Yes, WWE ECW.
No, this was a time when because WWE ECW was like 2007, 2006, 2008, and that's when I just starting to dip my toe back in and get into wrestling. So I wasn't watching that really.
So you didn't get into Ricky Ortiz or Colin Delaney or?
No, I missed all that stuff.
What a shame. You better.
And I haven't gone back to watch it.
Hey, yeah, December to Dismember. You should give it a look. But after this, we got America's Most Wanted versus the 3 Live Crew once again because we didn't get enough of them earlier in the show. So we have them facing Chris Harris and James Storm. AMW was probably one of the hottest acts in TNA at this point. Because like I said, tag team wrestling was a big deal for them, and they've like main evented pay-per-views. That Elix Skipper walk in the cage spot that we brought up earlier, that they were facing AMW, so that was a whole big thing for all guys involved. But they've been on a bit of a losing streak, so we got tension amongst AMW, but also tension with 3 Live Crews. How are these guys gonna get like all that whole thing, right? Again, this match there's not a lot to it. I tried to watch this whole show in one sitting, but it was at this point where I was like, I should probably finish it tomorrow.
I didn't watch it in one sitting. Full disclosure, it was like 3 parts I watched this in. And this part is when I turned it back on. I must have taken a break after a certain match, but I was like, man, Conan's looking good.
He's moving around really well.
Yeah, I was surprised.
He did like the old rolling. He did like a somersault into a clothesline. I was like, man, this guy is like in a matter of years, he's like using a cane. So it's like, geez. But eventually, so they're having this match. And then the Outlaw comes out. Monty Sopp is back. And he starts beating up on Conan. Conan is not the legal person at this point, so he's just beating him up outside of the ring, which distracts Conan's partner, Road Dogg. And this allows AMW to hit the heart attack, I guess, for the win. So AMW gets the win. They get out of there pretty quickly. I guess the story here is the further tension amongst Three Live Crew. Road Dogg is pissed that Conan wasn't there to make the tag, although like, did he not see him get his ass kicked on the outside? So Road Dogg he's upset, and then he just walks through the crowd. He doesn't even walk out through the tunnel. He just walks out through the crowd because there's basically a situation where Billy Gunn was on one ramp, and then he had Conan on the other, and he just chose neither of them, I guess, is the story here. Honestly, I'm just waiting for the Voodoo Kin Mafia to arise from this.
The VKM, for sure.
Is subtle, right?
Yeah. Clever, VKM. Very, very clever initials by those guys.
Yeah. Good match, right?
And yeah, and now Road Dogg's shining Vince McMahon shoes.
Yeah. Funny how things change. But so this brings us to our co-main event, I guess, is a 3-way elimination match for the X Division title. So we got Christopher Daniels, the champion, versus Michael Shane and Chris Sabin. What are your thoughts on Michael Shane, if any? Are you familiar with him at all?
Nope. You have to educate me.
So he is the cousin of Shawn Michaels. And
really?
That's his gimmick.
Okay, I was gonna say this gimmick.
No, he is. No, he legitimately is. But his gimmick is, hey, I'm Shawn Michaels' cousin.
Okay, I was unaware of this.
Look at the super kicks and elbow drops I do. It's kind of like Shawn Michaels, but worse, right, guys?
All right.
That's him. That's Michael Shane. And I'm debating if I even want to try to explain the story. I need like a diagram for this. So, last pay-per-view, right? Hard Justice. We had a mixed tag team match. So we had Chris Sabin teaming with Tracy versus Michael Shane and Trinity. But there was a double swerve at the end where Tracy gave Chris Sabin a low blow, and then Michael Shane gave Trinity a super kick. Now, I know what you're thinking. Which one's Tracy and which one's Trinity? Because both have black hair and have dark features and have similar first names that start with a T and that are one name, right? I agree. That's all very confusing. I was confused explaining that. I hope I got that right. But there's basically a double turn where they basically switched partners. So there's like this whole, I don't know if it's like a romance thing or if it's just people being dicks, but so they have that little issue going on. And then I guess they thought to themselves, let's just make this for the X Division title and get Christopher Daniels factored in somehow. So that's why this match is happening. So the match happens, and it's a pretty good match, honestly. It was a little slow in the beginning. The triple threat aspect of it was it felt like it was dragging a little bit.
The X Division seemed to me like that's kind of always what everybody points to for TNA during this time. X Division was always kind of the division for people, right? It was kind of the big deal. Okay.
Yeah, I don't associate Michael Shane with the X Division.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I associate the other guys like Chris Sabin, Christopher Daniels. That's kind of some of the guys I think of with the X Division stuff. And
if this was just a singles match between those guys, I think this would have been a whole lot better, honestly.
Yeah, it's like a B match. It's good. It's not bad. It's a B, but I think that's a good point. If it was a singles, it'd probably be an A, a really good match.
Yeah, I mean, probably honestly one of the better matches of the show. But like I said, it's an elimination match. And at some point, both women get in the ring for the obligatory cat fight that everyone in the audience has probably been waiting for this whole time, honestly. But Mike Tenay had a funny line. God, I forget what exactly he said, but it was like, "Oh, they're trying to get back at each other, but don't say tit for tat." It's because they both have tits.
That was his big zinger out there.
Yeah, it's probably what he had written down. Is probably waiting for the whole show to say it. Tits. So
nice, good timing on that one.
But the first elimination comes when Chris Sabin has Michael Shane on his shoulders, getting ready to hit the Cradle Shock, his finisher. Daniels has Trinity hooked up for the Angel's wings. Now remember, Trinity is now with Sabin. So it's almost like Daniels is threatening Sabin that, hey, if you do this, I'm going to hit Trinity with this. But first of all, it's an elimination match, so why does it matter? Second of all, it's clear that Chris Sabin doesn't care about Trinity. It's a whole thing, but I guess that's the story they're trying to tell there. But go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a good match. It's good.
Yeah.
It's nothing really else to add to it. Just it's good. And I feel like a lot of times throughout the show, I might feel like we're kind of crapping on this show, and we are at points. But I feel like if you were to watch one match on this show, I'd say it's the X Division match.
Yeah,
you pick one.
I would agree.
Although I love ridiculous and bad wrestling, so maybe the main event.
I was about to say the main event just for the pure entertainment value.
Right, maybe, and just the backwardsness of it. So
yeah, so Michael Shane gets eliminated with the Cradle Shock, and then like we said, it feels a singles match because that's what it ended up being at the end, and that's kind of when it picked up. So you had some good false finishes at the end. You have Daniels hitting the BME. You have Sabin hitting the springboard DDT, but ultimately Sabin goes for the cradle shock on Daniels. But Daniels fights out of it and hits the Angel's wings out of nowhere onto Sabin for the win. So Daniels retains his title here. Like I said, this is like, now that we got Samoa Joe here, this is when like the X Division really picks up with him and AJ and all those guys. So this is really just a precursor to when the X Division becomes really good, I think.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hit my microphone there, but that's kind of cool.
Unprofessional.
Well, I got a baseball hat on. I was hitting the pop filter. What can I say?
Well, at least you didn't lick the microphone and then rub your head on it like Monty Brown did. And this next, that's a segue.
What a segue. What a segue.
But yes, we got a Monty Brown promo here. I just bring it up because I love when Monty Brown cuts a promo. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but I love it. I love every syllable. And then so that builds up to the main event, which he's included in. So we have the NWA World Title on the line, and it's a King of the Mountain match. We have the champion AJ Styles versus Monty Brown versus Raven versus Abyss versus Sean Waltman.
So why don't you explain the rules of this match?
I was literally about like, hey, did they properly articulate the rules to you?
No,
because it didn't really seem.
They didn't. I figured it out, but
yeah,
I feel like this. We always like crap on WWE. Like, okay, we know the rules of the Royal Rumble. We don't need the graphics for it. We know it, but we need a graphic guy to tell us the rules of this. So could you explain to everyone and to me?
I'll try. I can't promise I'll have it right, but I'll try. So it is a reverse ladder match, because just having a ladder match would have been too silly. So it's a reverse ladder match, aka you have to take the title and hang it up, and whoever does that wins. But in order to be eligible to hang the title, you have to pin somebody. And when you pin somebody, that person that got pinned gets put in a penalty box for 2 minutes. And yeah, is that clear?
Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward, right?
So what you said makes sense, but it makes no sense why you would have a match like that. Particularly the penalty box cage, which looks like a red dog crate.
Yeah, it was very...
So the biggest thing that's goofy about this is once you get pinned or submitted, you have to go into the penalty box. But if you're like a heel or something, what's the punishment if you don't go in that box?
There's no disqualification.
So why would you go in the box?
I can't imagine there's any. There's literally no reason. It was funny because whenever somebody would get eliminated, it would have like 2 or 3 refs just literally just dragging your body and chucking you. So I guess that's kind of the premise, is that you're like too out of it to fight.
I guess, but I don't know. I don't really mind.
And why is it just 2 minutes? Like, I feel like 2 minutes is not a lot of time to be out of it.
It's
like,
the hockey reference.
Cover.
This is a whole Canada theme show. 2 minute minor. Maybe?
Sports.
I don't know. I don't mind the reverse ladder match aspect of it, of putting the belt back on. Maybe it'd be cool if it was something else you had to put back up there. I don't know. Like, the belt seems kind of silly. I have the belt. Why am I putting it back up? But
what would you prefer them
to put back up there?
Yeah. Maybe like screw in a light bulb or something.
Yeah, or like a TNA T-shirt or something, or a contract. I don't know, something. So really off topic. I went to an indie show last year. or a year and a half ago, whenever it was. And it was a ladder match was the main event. And the winner of the ladder match got a contract for a title match. So that was kind of the deal. So the contract, they printed out on paper and put on a clipboard, but they used a black and white laser jet printer for the contract. Well, you couldn't even get color for this, guys. Come on. It's like 20 cents for the colored printout. It was just funny. And also it's at a VFW hall, so the ceiling's maybe 11 feet tall. So they're using like a 10-foot ladder to get to 11-foot ceiling. It was it was a funny visual. At least this had the big studio aspect of it, so that was cool.
Right. You know, it's funny. You said it'd be better if you hung something up. Well, let me ask you this, because there was something similar, like earlier in the year of 2005. It was a match between Jeff Hardy and Abyss, I believe, and it was a ladder match, but up hanging was 3 envelopes, and you had to basically, so there was, I forget what it was. It was like 1 envelope. No, it was 2 envelopes. 1, you got a title shot, and 1, you got some sort of punishment. I forget what it was. Or no, the second one, there was nothing in it. So you literally had to climb this ladder.
Like, let's make a deal. The old game show. You got to pick it.
It's literally, dude. You take this envelope, you open it up while you're on this ladder.
Amazing. I got to start watching old TNA. This is amazing.
Pull the paper out. Oh, what's in it? Oh no, that's the nothing. Now I gotta slowly. Oh, they knocked me down. Now it's like they couldn't just have a fucking ladder match.
I get trying to stand out from WWE. I get it. I totally get it. But they had enough talented wrestlers on this roster, even at this time, where they didn't need to do this. And all things considered, this match was still entertaining to watch.
It was. There was a lot going on. And feel free to cut in wherever, because there's a lot going on here. So match gets underway. They try to explain the rules, but it's kind of like throughout the match, they kind of keep adding little things here. Like, for example, Monty Brown, he gives Raven the pounce, like 30 seconds into the match, pins him. I love the pounce. I will always pop for the pounce. So Raven gets thrown in the box, but they didn't really quite have the time figured out, because Raven got out like 15 seconds early. So he's in the ring. He gets in the ring. He starts fighting people, but the timer on the bottom left-hand corner still shows Raven. It still has like 15 seconds left. And stupid Jeremy Borash is still counting down as if Raven is still in this box. So it was a little delay there somewhere.
It's a dog cage. It's not a box. A box would indicate they couldn't see what was going on. It's literally a dog cage, a dog crate. If you had like a St. Bernard big dog, this is what you would put him in.
It's like the current Hell in a Cell if there was like a toy version.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Basically. So Raven's back in there. Monty Brown then takes X-Pac and pins him with the Alpha Bomb. So Monty Brown is just pinning everybody. I don't know why he keeps pinning. Oh, I guess if they get thrown in the box. Then Monty Brown then gives the pounce to AJ Styles, knocking him all the way out of the ring. And Raven pins AJ on the floor. So I guess it's also falls count anywhere. Or maybe they're just making up the rules as they go along.
They should have made this clear at the beginning. We should have had the graphic.
They should have. Quick table, some bullets. That's all we need. Mike Tenay makes a point, because now AJ and X-Pac are in the box together, and they're in the cage together. So Mike Tenay is like, sometimes you make friends when you're in there in the penalty box. And then it cuts to AJ and X-Pac, who are like talking to each other and shaking hands and allegedly creating some sort of alliance or whatever the fuck, which comes into play later. And then so Abyss back in the ring, hits Monty Brown with the Black Hole Slam. So he pins. So all these guys that are getting pins are now eligible to hang the belt up. X-Pac sets up a table on the outside, lays Abyss on it, and then AJ Styles hits the spiral tap through the table. So like a corkscrew splash of sorts through the table onto Abyss. So I guess this all plays into them working together because they were in the cage together. And also, because there was a few occurrences in this show where this happened. The tables that they had, they looked like, did you ever get like the action figure tables where it was just like a clean like break? That's what it reminded me.
The zigzag break, yeah.
There was no like shards of wood. It was just like, it's 2 pieces.
Which is probably how all tables should break in wrestling.
I think
we don't want the craziness. We want them to be safe, but
yeah.
I guess maybe Impact was looking out. Or these were like the stunt tables from the Universal Studios tour. They just grabbed them.
What? That literally, I bet you that's true. I bet you that's true.
Yep, they just grabbed him.
So Abyss is like,
There's some blood in this match too, which I was kind of surprised. That kind of threw me for a loop because this whole show there's nothing like that, and all of a sudden Raven's busted open.
yeah. Normally there's actually a lot of blood in TNA shows, but for whatever reason, this one was an outlier. But so Abyss is laid out. AJ and X-Pac, who I guess now are teaming with each other, both start climbing the ladder in the middle of the ring. X-Pac even hands AJ the title for him to hang it up. So I guess now he's helping AJ, and then bam, X-Pac, the 1-2-3 kid, nails him, and then hits the X Factor off the top of the ladder. Looked amazing. I gotta say this about X-Pac, because there's a lot of old timers. He's not really an old timer. He's like in his early 30s at this point, I think. But a lot of like legends and big names from WWE and WCW coming to TNA in this era. But X-Pac worked his ass off in this match, I thought.
Yeah, and he's in great shape too. Yeah. He's not overweight, doesn't have like a beer belly or anything like that. And I don't know what his sobriety or mental state was at this point, but he wasn't there to screw around. He was there to prove himself.
Yeah. Even all of his facials and his emotions, even like at the end of the match, were really like he gave a shit, which is not like Outlaw. I can't really say that Outlaw gave a shit.
He's only 33 right now in 2000. I just looked it up. He's 33 in 2005, so he's still young.
That sounds right. He's looking like the 1-2-3 kid that beat Razor Ramon.
But with a beard.
Yes, of course, because he's a man now. 1-2-3 man.
1-2-3 man.
So now I bet you're asking yourself, man, I wish this match had a staple gun. Well, Raven is here to supplement that for you. Brings it in, staples X-Pac in the head with it. But X-Pac fights out, retaliates, gives a low blow to Raven, and then takes the staple gun and staples Raven's balls.
Did we get a close up of the staple? Have we confirmed his balls were stapled, or was it shooting blanks?
I'll Google stapled balls after this, and I'll let you know what my findings.
Let me know.
I'm sure I'll find
share your screen.
I'm sure I'll find Slammiversary 2005.
Yeah, that's what you'll find. First thing will come up.
Yeah, and then Abyss gets knocked down too, and then X-Pac also staples his balls. So I guess that's his gimmick now. But then Mike Tenay, once again, very confused. Waltman starts climbing the ladder with the belt because, as we remember before, he pinned AJ Styles with the X Factor from the top of the ladder. But Mike Tenay apparently forgot all of this throughout all the chaos. So it was like, Sean Waltman, he's not eligible. And then Don West is like, let me tell you something, Professor. He pinned him. That whole thing.
That's okay.
But it's okay. It happens.
We'll allow it.
There's a lot going on. So both AJ and X-Pac, once again, are climbing the ladder. Abyss pushes the ladder over, and both men go flying to the outside, including AJ, through a table. So that takes out both of those guys. Abyss then tries to climb the ladder himself, but Monty Brown is back in and gives him the pounce off the ladder through a table that's set up in the corner. Loved it. But then Raven gets in there and hits the even flow DDT onto Monty Brown, and this allows Raven to climb the ladder and hang the title up, and we have a new NWA World Champion, Raven, and the crowd loves it.
Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, Raven. NWA champs.
Throw in Ron Killings in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. But a lot of chaos in this match, but honestly, I was very entertained throughout the whole thing.
See, I think this show, if you watch it split up, it's fine. Like if this was by the way, this whole pay-per-view is for free on YouTube, by the way. Because I was going to sign up for Impact Plus, and I was like, oh, this is for free on YouTube. I'm good.
Right.
On the Impact official channel. If they were just to put this individual match on their YouTube channel or something, it's cool to watch in a vacuum. It's a fun little thing to watch. And the pay-per-view itself at times dragged a little bit, but I think breaking it up made it more fun to watch.
Yeah, I typically, because it was, 3 hours?
Yeah, just under 3 hours. Yeah, just under. Which is nothing for today's pay-per-views, but yeah, just under 3 hours.
Yeah, but I agree. It they all typically in this era kind of drag a little bit at some point, so it's hard to get through it from start to finish. But yeah, ultimately, this overall, I enjoyed this pay-per-view. I think it had a lot of good moments, and it was very limited on the amount of old because they've had like Dustin Rhodes before and a bunch of other guys that
Scott Hall, Kevin Nash.
Yes, exactly. And it's like it felt like kind of more of a changing of the guard. Like not all of it was good, but for the most part, it seemed like younger guys that were being set up for the future. I think.
Cool.
But yeah, any other thoughts on Slammiversary 05?
Just what you said. This show is a mess. It's nuts, but it's not bad. Like some pay-per-views are just bad and hard to watch. This definitely was not one of them. And I think when you messaged me a few weeks back, a couple months back now about it, you're like, hey, do you want to do this? My initial thought was say no, it's kind of not my thing. But I was like, you know what? Let me take a shot at a show I've never seen before and have no context of. And it was fun to do. Yeah. It was fun to check out. I love watching all kinds of wrestling, and I'll always check out stuff I've never seen before. But it was definitely cool to watch. And I want to find more King of the Mountain matches and just more goofy TNA rule matches to check out.
I think it becomes like a Slammiversary tradition for a good amount of time where they always have a King of the Mountain. I think it's where Kurt Angle won his first title.
Okay.
I don't know if they've done it recently. They might bring it back. Hopefully they'll bring it back sometime soon. I'd love to see it in modern day. It might get me to tune in. But yeah, you're clearly very positive about this show. Speaking of Positively Pro Wrestling. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure. You can find us. We're the Positively Pro Wrestling Podcast. It's been around 4.5 years or so now. And you can find us on Twitter at PPW Podcast. That's where the main show information is and all that stuff. And all the interactions that I run the account with. Me and Eric do the show every week or every other week whenever we have time. And then Instagram, PPW_podcast. Someone stole PPW Podcast just for random wrestling pictures. Yeah, exactly. And then all your favorite podcast apps, just search Positively Pro Wrestling Podcast. We're on there for you. Initially, the main point of the show was to be positive. Because when I first started the show, there was all these like podcasts where they would just you flip it on and just be them shitting on stuff for 2 hours. Like, all right, I can do that. But I love wrestling. Let's talk about things I like about wrestling. And that's what we did. And over time, it's morphed into what it is now, which is basically a nostalgia type show where, for example, we just did SummerSlam 90. And it was let's talk about the show, but talk about also where we were as a fan at the time, what was going on in our lives at the time. Because I feel all of us who were born from like 1979 to like 1990 or so have the same type of upbringing where it was just before the internet was being out and huge, and we're all discovering things, we're renting videotapes and things like that. And I think on our last show, I ended up telling a story about how my mom more or less stole a Chris Chelios Blackhawks jersey for me by switching price tags, and just you get it. We go these weird rabbit holes. So we just try to keep it fun and nostalgic and positive, and always looking for show suggestions and always looking for podcast buddies and all that stuff too. So PPW Podcast on Twitter and Positively Pro Wrestling Podcast on your favorite podcast apps.
Oh yeah, you guys do a good job over there. I actually just listened to your ECW One Night Stand 05 episode earlier today, and that's a show I don't remember a lot about. Like I thought I remembered a lot about it, but when I listened to you guys talk about it, like man, I forgot.
Right, same deal. Like this is 2005, same chronically same thing, and I wasn't watching at the time, so that's a weird show because that ECW show is a nostalgia show for sure, but it's not a nostalgia show for me personally. So it's kind of cool to look back at that. Because I'm sure there's somebody that has a huge nostalgia for Slammiversary 2005 out there, and we're kind of shitting all over it. But it doesn't matter. I love bad pay-per-views. I love like WrestleMania 9. Like it's terrible, but I was a kid in middle school at the time. I love it. So.
Right. There's always like some interesting stuff that you can pull from that. Just different eras and different ways wrestling was presented over the years.
Yeah, and you were talking about, I think it was your last show, you did that Vengeance 2001 show. And that was a time where I was completely started to be checked out of wrestling. So I went back to watch it, and I just like, I kind of remember what's going on here, and I can kind of see why the fan base started dying off a little bit and all that. So it's a cool little snapshot. And that's what's cool. I think what you guys do is there's no real limits for where you're going to pick your shows from. So you're kind of all over the spectrum. So it's cool to get those different perspectives from all these different eras.
Right, exactly. Yes, every era, every company has something to offer. It's all different. So keeps things fresh for sure. But once again, man, thank you for taking the time to watch the show. Yeah, and to come on here and talk about it. I had a good time.
For sure, man. I'm sure we'll go it again sometime down the line, or I could have you guys come on. And I talked about this on Twitter too. Like podcast crossover needs to happen more. I think it's fun when shows do that. So we'll try to keep it going.
Yeah. I try to do it every week, and I've met a lot of people that I consider friends now through doing it. So always a good time to get different perspectives.
Well, there's always big wrestling events where everyone comes together. Maybe next WrestleMania or All Out weekend or whatever it is, we'll all be around.
It's funny. It seems like everybody that I find that does a wrestling podcast is from Chicago. Like, it seems like every other guy I have on here is from
I don't know.
there.
I know nobody from Chicago.
Oh, man.
Everyone I know is like out west or and out east or something like that. Yeah, the OVP podcast guys are out east. Fully Posables out west. Breaker and Bane's out west. Doing the Favors out in, or actually Breaker and Bane are in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So, and where you based again? Virginia. Okay, so you're out east. Everyone's all over the place.
Yeah.
We've got the big map taking over the place.
Yeah, something like that. Well, one day I'll come out there and we'll do a big wrestling podcast together.
Just come to WrestleMania next year in Dallas. Even if you're not going to go to WrestleMania itself, just come for the shit show that is WrestleMania weekend.
That might be a thing. That happens.
There you go. Sure.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your night. And once again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Once again, thank you to Steve from the Positively Pro Wrestling Podcast. Awesome guest. Loved having him on. And you can check out their podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, all of their social media and whatnot in the description. And once again, if you enjoy these TNA reviews, if you're a new listener, relatively new listener, go to apronbump.com and go to the episodes tab at the top. Click on TNA and it'll bring you to all the TNA episodes that I've done, all of the events I've covered, started from the first pay-per-view in 2004 and worked our way up to where we are now into the middle of 2005. It's been a fun ride, man. Let me tell you, it's been a lot of shenanigans. TNA, lots of good, lots of bad, but it's all fun. And that's kind of the point of this, huh? You can also go, by the way, alternatively, you can also go to the Modern Alternatives tab on apronbump.com, and it will bring you to not only TNA, but Ring of Honor. As I mentioned before, we just covered Samoa Joe's debut in Ring of Honor, and there's a lot of other crossover between Ring of Honor and TNA, as they often would in this time period. Like we said, we saw Delirious on this show, who was a staple in Ring of Honor. I think even today he's with them as a booker or something. I'm not really sure, but my AJ Styles was in Ring of Honor. We're gonna see Low Key soon, and like there's a ton of crossover, and it's just awesome to see these different companies kind of collaborating, which is kind of what we're seeing nowadays in a way. But next week we got ECW. Return of the Funker 1995. So we're going to hop back 10 years and hop into a no AC arena and watch a lot of people bleed a lot. We're going to, in this show, we saw Shane Douglas and his skills as an interviewer, or lack thereof. But now we're going to hop to Shane Douglas defending his title, his ECW world title, against Marty Jannetty. Yeah, that happened. That was a thing that happened. But yes, follow all my social media. Again, find it all in the description. Also, you can find it all on apronbump.com, all my episodes. Feel free to throw me a rating or review. Go sub to my YouTube channel. Give this video version a like, which, by the way, the video versions of all my episodes are on YouTube as well. Give me a subscribe, hit the notification bell, kiss your sister on the lips, all the usual things you do. And yeah, that's it, boys. Why was that the thing I said there? I don't know. Thank you guys once again for listening. I appreciate you all. I'm hard.
Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I guess. Let's get it started. It's the hard.